Hey everyone, welcome to the third episode in our 10-part mini-series on the basics of art and animation in Krita. Today we're going to be looking at drawing tools for beginners, so let's get going. First things first, we'll be checking out the brush and tool presets. If for whatever reason they aren't already visible and docked for you, feel free to head up here to settings, then dockers, and then make sure that brush presets and tool options are checked. Here we can start having a look at the various different brushes, erasers and tools available for drawing. Before we head into exploring brushes, here are some quick basic tips. To pan around the canvas, hold space, then click and drag with your left mouse button, or you can click and hold your scroll wheel down and move your mouse. Tap 1 to zoom to 100%, tap 2 to fit to canvas, tap 3 to fit to the width of the canvas. To zoom in and out, you can either use your mouse scroll wheel or tap the plus or minus keys. To rotate your canvas, tap 4 or 6 to rotate anti-clockwise or clockwise respectively. To zero your rotation, you can tap the 5 key. Alternatively, you can hold shift, space and your left mouse button whilst dragging to have more control over your canvas rotation. If you wish to mirror your canvas to check proportions or to refresh whilst looking at your work for an extended time, you can tap the M key. To resize your brush, you can use the option at the top of your screen in this bar here, or you can hold shift and your left mouse button whilst dragging left or right to size down or up respectively. To eyedrop colours, hold Ctrl and click your left mouse button on the colour you wish to grab. You also have your essential hotkeys for undo being hold Ctrl and tap Z, and redo being hold Ctrl and shift then tap Z. Holding V does something really interesting, which is if you find yourself switching between straight and freehand, Holding V allows you to temporarily draw straight lines, and letting go of V then allows you to switch back to your chosen tool, which in this case will be our brush tool. Now that we have all of those tips out of the way, we can start messing around with some brushes. As you can see from this panel over here, it can be very easy to get overwhelmed at all of the options available to you. If you click on this drop down menu, you can filter through the brushes to make the options a lot more visually manageable. Further still, if you found specific brushes that work for you in specific ways, you can right click on a brush and add it to a new tag. Once added to a tag, you can filter all of the brushes based on your personal taste and needs. If you find yourself struggling with the default brushes, then you can find brush packs and settings from your favourite artists. Here's an example of a brush setting that I really like. Feel free to follow along to make this setting for yourself. This brush's values were perfected by the YouTube channel Moss Charmly Presents. Feel free to head over there for more tips and tricks. Remember, you can pause at any point if anything becomes unclear, or I move too quickly. This particular brush is very useful for inking for a comic book or illustration style, and is generally called a G-pen. I'm going to use this brush here as a base. You can right click or hover to confirm the brush's name. Once you have selected this brush, head over to the edit brush option up here. At the top left, we have a drop-down menu called General. This is where we will be selecting options to customize. Head over and select Brush Tip. Once that has been selected, head over to Auto just to the right, select that option. Once selected, the window should change to look like this one. Head over to Diameter, where we're going to use the arrows on the right hand side to bring the value up to 20 pixels. At the bottom, you'll see the option of spacing, where we want to check the auto box, which brings the value to 1. Back in the general drop-down menu on the top left, we are going to select the opacity setting. Here, we are going to confirm that the Enable Pen Settings option is left unchecked and that the strength value is at 100%. Back in the General drop-down menu, we're going to select the Flow setting. Here, we are going to confirm that the Enable Pen Settings option is left unchecked, just like the previous option, and again the strength will be set to 100%. Back in the General drop-down menu, we'll select the Size setting. This time, we want the Enable Pen Settings option to be checked with the strength set to 100%. Head over to the box in the middle with the different lines. We're going to select the third line across that looks like the letter S, as shown here. Once selected, we're going to go to the bottom node on the graph and select it. Once selected, we are going to head over to this little box on the middle right of the graph to input the value of 15%. Then we are going to select the second node from the bottom left. Using the box on the right hand side of the graph, we're going to input the value of 40%. The last two nodes are fine, left as they are. Your graph should now look like this. Back to the General drop-down menu, we'll be looking at the Strength Settings tab and make sure that it is unchecked as shown here. Again, in the General drop-down menu, we're going to find the Opacity tab. Once selected, we're going to uncheck the Enable Pen Settings in the main body of this window. Just underneath the Opacity tab, in the General drop-down menu, we're going to select the Flow tab and make sure that we uncheck the Enable Pen Settings in the main body of this window. Now that all of these settings have been completed, we can head over to the top right where we will see the Save New Brush Preset option. Please try not to press the Overwrite Brush Preset button. A new window should pop up as shown. This is where we can rename this new brush. We can name this MC G Pen for Moss Charmley G Pen, as this is where these settings have been perfected. You should always be aware of where you have gotten your custom brush settings from, and name them accordingly, as you may tweak this in the future, and want to make sure you know which version of a specific brush you are using. In this same window, we're going to select the Load from Icon Library option. This will then show a list of different brush icons that you can then select to represent this brush. Once you have selected your brush icon, feel free to change the hue of the icon at the top right too. Underneath, you can also have an emblem icon added to this image if you wish. Once you have it as you like, you can press the OK button, which will bring you back to this window. In this window, you will see an example of the thumbnail for the brush. Here, you can paint in that window to show an example of what the brush will look like on the canvas when used. Once you are happy with your new brush, feel free to press the save button. Now that you have created your G-Pen, you can head over to the brush presets dock, and at the bottom you will see a search bar. Search for the G-Pen. Here you can then see it pop up. And you can right click here to add it to your new or existing tags. Once that is done, you will now have an easy access to this new brush that you have made. Just before we head into using our brushes, I wanted to show you how we can use brush smoothing settings at the top right here in our tool options to help with outlining your artwork. If we head up to this drop down menu, you can see that there are three options: basic, weighted and stabilizer. The stabilizer is a really good option to play around with if you like long clean line work. To experiment a little bit, feel free to play around with all of the existing brush presets or follow along with this time lapse of this artwork of Mars Morales. Whilst this is going on, I wanted to shout out another custom pen that Mosh Charmly Presents has made that will help with illustration and line work called the Maru pen. If you'd like to find out more about that, then feel free to head over to their video named Krita Line Art for Beginners Part 1 Perfect Pen. Another cool thing about Krita is that you have two options for using the eraser. You can either click on the eraser brush in the brush presets, or you can use the option at the top of the screen, which then allows you to use the eraser mode of the current brush you are using. This second option can lead to very interesting and useful techniques with your own artworks. And there we have it, basic drawing tools for beginners in Krita. Feel free to stick around and check out the bonus episode showing a time-lapse process of creating this artwork, using only the techniques and brush shown in this episode. And I'll be seeing you in the next episode of this 10-part mini-series on the basics of art and animation in Krita.